with the range David's saying, 5, 10, 15 grand an acre, around about that line, that's not residential at the moment, that is just agricultural land, no infrastructure. And it shows you a way to stay on that land whilst building your farm, building your home, and building the life that you've got. You know that vision that you were just went in? I want my bedroom here, I want the ensuite here, I want my communal space and everything along those lines. Hold on to that bad boy vision and read that book, because essentially that shows you how to the parameters of what you need to be able to do, which makes it affordable. Okay? If you wanted to buy farmland now with a farmhouse already on it, in the area that you're looking at, we know that it's going to be £1 million plus. Okay, so very inaccessible for a lot of the population.
Okay. Especially now that most people buy property through leverage, through mortgage finance. So most people don't have the money to buy. And right now, we are August 2024, the banks are pulling in their funding, despite the fact they'll say, oh, it's easy to get a mortgage. The reality is they're not lending at the moment at the rates that they normally do because the financial system is on a bit of a knife edge. So you need to look at other ways, other sources of acquiring your land. Otherwise, it could be another decade or two for most people, even if they're working hard to save, even if they can save, you know, to do it. And if inflation continues, you'll always be chasing your tail. Your money will reduce, any savings you have will reduce in value by whatever the real inflation rate is, not the inflation rate we're told it is, 2%, which we all know is not true. That, you know, we know it's a lot higher than that.
So just wanted to touch on mortgages. So can you just get a standard mortgage to buy farmland?
No.
Does it work the same as buying a house? Because when I looked at it, the first thing that slapped me in the face was a deposit percentage that they typically request. And that varied wildly. That went from 35% up to 70%, which that's ludicrous. Like,
well,
who's just got 500k sitting around in the bank?
But you're right. That's
ready to deploy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The bank, if you think about it, it is ludicrous from our point of view, but we're not the ones lending the money. We're the ones borrowing. So it's not ludicrous from the lender's point of view. So when you get a mortgage, and I'll just be brief on this, but most people think, they imagine they go to the bank and the bank opens its vault and in there's a lot of money sitting there, and you go, I need £100,000 or $500,000.
No, they're swimming in it.
Yeah, and they go into the vault
swimming in
and
the
they
money.
go and count.
Like DuckTales.
They go and count, they get their money out, flick it out. And they go, there you go, there's your money. But have you ever noticed that no one ever gets the cash, do they? It always gets transferred to another account, the account of the person that you're buying the property from. Right. So the money doesn't actually exist. There is no money. The money only comes into creation when you sign the mortgage agreement. So you're creating a contract that actually creates the money. All money, well, pretty much all money that we have in our system, this is hard to get your head around if you've not thought about it before, is really an expression of debt. So effectively, the mortgage company are creating a security document, a document which you have agreed to pay them a set amount. So a really simple example is you borrow £100,000 and you say, I will pay that back over, I don't know, let's say 20 years, right? So what's that? £100,000 over 20 years, £5,000 a year. So you're basically making a promise to give them £5,000 a year. That then creates the money that they then lend into existence and give to the person you're buying the property from, because you've made a contract with the bank to give them £5,000 a year. So you've created value out of thin air, and they have the right.
Paid it to you, basically.
No, they've paid it to the other person, but they have the right to create that money out of thin air. It's probably a bit too much for this podcast at this stage, but you've asked a question about mortgages, which is so you understand why. Now, if you've never run a farm and you've never run a business and you go to a bank and say, I'd like to borrow some money, they're going to go, well, you're quite high risk. You don't know anything about farming. You've never owned land. You like the idea of it, don't we all? But how do I know you're going to succeed or fail? You might give up after a week going, oh, it's got a bit muddy. I don't like mud on my shoes. You know, farming in stilettos is not much fun, etc. So they're going to just say you're low risk. Now, if you had 30 years experience running a farm and you had a track record of successful, totally profitable business, then they would probably lend you 70%. If you had successful experience running a business for 15 years and had quite a bit of capital, then they would say, well, maybe we'll lend you 50% because you've got quite a bit of money to put down on this land and we're only at risk for 50%. Because remember, they are creating a loan. They're not giving you money, but they're creating a securitized document. If you fail to pay it back, then they will have to make good that balance. Right? That's when it comes a problem to them. But if you pay it back, it's not a problem because they're going to get the interest. And then when you've paid all the money back, they extinguish the loan that sits on their books. So they just cross off what the money they made out of thin air. But they've collected all the interest in the meantime. So they've created interest on something that never existed, which if you or I did it, is called fraud. It's called counterfeiting, right? We would go to prison for it, but if you have a banking license, you're allowed to do it. So that's my opinion. Correct me if I'm wrong, YouTubers out there who know about finance. I'm just a bloke on the internet. I'm just a geezer on the internet.
So then going back to that high risk proposition. So you've woke up, you've seen the land that you want, and you want to go and buy it, right? You've got to be bloody bonkers to think that from no experience of being a farmer to be able to then read a book, Field to Farm, and know how to acquire that land and run a farm and run a successful business in the first 3 years. That's essentially what you need to do. That's the mission. You've got to be bloody bonkers. Are you bonkers? All right. So I was that bonkers, 10 years ago because of I read this book and I knew I could do it. All right. What my perception was I was a high risk because I'd never done farming before. And the statistics show you that a lot of businesses fail in the first year, it's, 90% plus. So what was I going to do? All right. So with the Field to Farm piece, it teaches you how to get on the land and live in a caravan, you stay in a caravan.
Caravan Act compliant building.
A Caravan Act compliant building, and I would figure it out. That was my bonkers plan. But I knew that I couldn't start and survive a farm business from scratch because I did not know how to do it. Right? Then it was a roller coaster. It was an absolute mess.
That's episode 2 or 3.
Sign me up for a few more of those. I'll be crying on you. But the universe answered my prayers and put David in my path. He provides this farming and agricultural passion and love to then be the other part of this land investment piece that I wanted. I wanted freedom. I wanted to invest in land. I wanted to get the planning gain from taking a cheap piece of agricultural land, getting planning permission on it, building the house of my dreams and living on there with my beautiful wife and my kids. That's what I wanted, personally. I wanted that freedom. I wanted my family. I wanted to have fun. Because I'm bonkers. But I didn't have that other part. And the universe answered with this beautiful human being.
We had a mutual friend, didn't we, Stuart, who introduced us.
I haven't thanked him enough, to be honest. I will thank you more, Stuart.
Yeah, if you're out there.
So, there are other ways other than the mortgage to buy land.
Yep.
Are we going to dig deeper into those?
Yeah, I mean, we can. Well, in other episodes, we'll go into great detail if you're watching or listening to this.
I think they're worth a very, very step-by-step conversation about all the options. And
so there's a whole host of different ways of attracting the capital, gaining the finance in order to do this. The mortgage rate is the simplest, and if you can, through your personal network, raise the deposit. Then of course you will be able to get a mortgage, and there are a number of organisations which we we can mention it in the future episodes, but that will lend. But again, the loan to value will be low. So generally you will have to raise quite a bit. Having said that, bear in mind that farmland is £10,000 to £12,000 an acre. An acre of land with planning permission for residential in an urban environment could be £1 million plus, or more. So there's a word called arbitrage. It basically means the difference in price between X and Y. It's a bit more complicated than that, but basically there's a massive difference in value if you can get that, and that value should accrue to you if you develop your small holding. Okay.
And that's what was attractive to me as well, right? Because if we was going to get this land, going to have a mortgage, but if I went and bought another house, what can I do in that house that pays my mortgage?
Yeah,
pretty much.
Rent out a room, Airbnb, have other people in my house.
In your house, yeah.
I want freedom.
Yeah.
I don't want to be.
Yeah.
I didn't realise you felt that way about me when I came to stay.
You're not moving in. You don't want to see this in the morning, right? So this is why I love the Field to Farm and the Smallholding Revolution piece.
Yeah.
We're acquiring a perceived low value piece of land. Mm-hmm. We have got a pathway to add value and planning gain on that agricultural piece of land. Yeah. Plus, I'm an entrepreneur. You get a farm business that adds value to your life